In time, through small breaks between trees, we could glimpse a distant level horizon sharpen in the glow of first light. Decades have passed, nearly my entire life, since a 7-year-old stood with her family at a remote point on the North Rim. I hadn't known what to expect at road's end. The memory of what we found shapes me still. Point Sublime tips a long promontory that juts southward into the widest part of the canyon, a finger pointing from the forested Kaibab Knuckle. It was named by Clarence Edward Dutton with other members of field parties he led between 1875 and 1880, first on John Wesley Powell's Geographical and Geological Survey of the Rocky Mountain region, then under the new U.S. Geological Survey. To Dutton, the view from the point was the most sublime and awe-inspiring spectacle in the world. The year the Grand Canyon became a national park, in 1919, more than 44,000 people visited. Most of them arrived by train to the South Rim. On the higher and more remote North Rim, those daring could try wagon tracks used by ranchers and pioneer tourism entrepreneurs over rough limestone terrain to Cape Royal and Point Sublime, or they could follow a Forest Service route to Bright Angel Point. Soon, roads scratched out on the Kaibab Plateau would replace the old wagon paths, allowing work crews to fight fires as well as infesting insects. But the summer of 1925 would be a turning point. For the first time and ever since, visiting motorists outnumbered rail passengers. The National Park Service encouraged and responded to this new form of tourism by building scenic drives and campgrounds on both rims. Auto tourists often attempted the twisting, crude road to Point Sublime. The Grand Canyon now draws nearly 5 million visitors each year. The 17-mile route to Point Sublime remains primitive, and sane drivers tend not to risk low-clearance two-wheel drive vehicles on it. Sometimes the road is impassable. One year, it was reported to have swallowed a road grader. Still, the slow, bumpy way draws those who wish to see the canyon far from crowds and pavement, as my father wanted us to do those many years ago. None of us had visited the canyon before that morning. We weren't prepared. Neither were the men from Spain who, more than 400 years earlier, ventured to the South Rim as part of an entrada in search of rumored gold. In 1540, Garcia Lopez de Cárdenas commanded a party of Coronado's soldiers who sought a great and possibly navigable river they were told lay west and north of Hopi villages. Led by native guides, these first Europeans to march up to the gorge's edge and stare into its depths couldn't imagine or measure its scale. Pedro de Castañeda de Nájera chronicled the expedition. They spent 3 days on this bank looking for a passage down to the river, which looked from above as if the water was 6 feet across, although the Indians said it was half a league wide. It was impossible to descend, for after these 3 days, Captain Melgosa and one Juan Galeras and another companion, who were the 3 lightest and most agile men, made an attempt to go down at the least difficult place. They returned about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, not having succeeded in reaching the bottom on account of the great difficulties which they found, because what seemed to be easy from above was not so, but instead very hard and difficult. They said that they had been down about a third of the way, and that the river seemed very large from the place which they reached, and that from what they saw, they thought the Indians had given the width correctly. Those who stayed above had estimated that some huge rocks on the sides of cliffs seemed to be about as tall as a man, but those who went down swore that when they reached these rocks, they were bigger than the Great Tower of Seville. The Spaniards knew lands of different proportions. Writing more than 3 centuries later, Clarence Dutton understood how easily one could be tricked by first views from the rim. As we contemplate these objects, we find it quite impossible to realize their magnitude, he wrote. Not only are we deceived, but we are conscious that we are deceived, and yet we cannot conquer the deception. Dimensions, he added, mean nothing to the senses, and all that we are conscious of in this respect is a troubled sense of immensity. Point Sublime holds a prominent place in Dutton's tertiary history of the Grand Canyon district, the first monograph published by a fledgling U.S. Geological Survey in 1882. lavishly illustrated with topographic line drawings and panoramas by William Henry Holmes, Thomas Moran's paintings and drawings,